Now, local elections in England and Anglesey 3 weeks tomorrow, and we already know one outcome. In the comparable elections 4 years ago, the British National Party fielded 450 candidates. This time round, they're only putting up around 100. The British Democratic Party, which hoped to replace them, is fielding only 3. What's happened? Is it something to do with a strong showing of UKIP in the Eastleigh by-election the other day? Or has something changed inside the extreme right? One for Chris Mason.
2009 and the BNP make a breakthrough on a scale it had never achieved before. Its leader Nick Griffin won one of 2 seats for the party in the European Parliament. Add to that nearly a huge leap forward in East London, winning 12 seats on Barking and Dagenham Council and becoming the official opposition. Fast forward to 2010 and their expressions say it all. Smiles are wiped off their faces as the party is wiped out in Barking and Dagenham, and Nick Griffin's attempt to become the local MP got nowhere either. He was comfortably beaten by Labour. The party's only other MEP, Andrew Bronze, here on the right, then gave up on the BNP last year. The ebb and flow of the party's membership numbers illustrate that spike in its popularity in 2009. They peaked at more than 12,500. Yes, only a very modest football stadium's worth, but since then, they've almost halved.
At the high point in sort of 2007 through to about 2009, the BNP were picking up around 250,000 votes in local elections. Obviously, they picked up considerably more in the European Parliament elections when they got over 800,000 votes and 2 seats. Since then, we've seen a decline, a very steep decline, both in the number of votes they're getting, but also, very importantly, in the number of candidates that they're actually in a position to field.
The BNP said it didn't want to come on to Newsnight tonight, but in a statement, the party said it had made a deliberate decision to focus its efforts on a smaller number of seats. An official also pointed out it had received a £200,000 donation recently from a member in his will, and that had restored the party's finances. But why is the BNP struggling? In the statement, they said it was because of the rise of the UK Independence Party.
They are, in a sense, hoovering up a lot of the BNP's support, but UKIP are also in a better position because, not coming from a sort of fascist or racist or violent tradition, they are excluded, as it were, from mainstream political debate. Now, Nigel Farage and his colleagues are accepted as a part of mainstream politics in a way that Nick Griffin and the BNP never could be.
There has also been a splintering of groups and parties on the far right. The English Defence League has become a noisy fixture in town centres at its regular demonstrations. There is also the British Democratic Party, Britain First and Patria, amongst others. The League's leader, Tommy Robinson, sees his outfit as a protest group that's hoovered up working class support across the political spectrum and has his own take on the fortunes of the BNP.
I think when you're drowning, you clutch at straws. And towns and cities across this country have been drowning for a long time, and a lot of people clutch at straws, and that straw was the BNP. Because there's been a feeling in all the towns and cities like Luton where people are fed up. People are fed up and disillusioned with politics, to be honest.
There is a bigger question too about the relative performance of the far right as a whole in the UK compared to elsewhere in Europe. Take the Le Pen dynasty in France. Father Jean-Marie, daughter Marine. The BNP, even at its height, was little more than a barely relevant footnote. And yet the Front National is a serious force in French presidential elections. And there are plenty of other groups on the far right elsewhere in Europe, vociferous, controversial and more successful than the BNP. But both here and there, with economies flatlining, the appeal of parties seen as detached from the mainstream, whoever they are, is likely to continue.
Now, Andrew Bronze is an MEP who until last year was a senior member of the British National Party. He's now involved with a new far-right organisation, the British Democratic Party. He joins us from Leeds. Margaret Hodge is the Labour MP for Barking, where the BNP was once the official opposition on that local council. She successfully fought off a challenge for her seat from the BNP's leader, Nick Griffin, at the last general election. Andrew Bronze, what do you think has happened to BNP support?
Well, I'd like to correct one or two things. First of all, the 2010 general election saw a fall in, if you like, all small parties, but not in the BNP in particular. In fact, if you compare the BNP's showing in 2010, it was slightly better than UKIP's. The average vote per constituency was a large sum of 8 votes higher than UKIP. So it isn't true that the BNP individually collapsed then.
So they're on the rise, and that's why you left them, is it?
I beg your pardon?
They're on the rise, is that why you left?
No, it's a lot happened in between time. What happened as the result of the election is there were some people who were disappointed, and they strove to remove Nick Griffin. I didn't agree with their criticism of the general election, but I did agree that they had a right to do that. Nick Griffin's reaction was really to try to repress that difference of opinion. Right. And as a result of that, many people either were driven out of the party or left the party, and we've seen it fragment since.
Now, Margaret Hodge, what is unarguable statistically is that they are certainly BNPs, having fielded 450 candidates at the comparable election 4 years ago, is now fielding slightly under 100, thereabouts. That does indicate something, doesn't it? Do you think you're worried too much about them in the Labour Party?
I don't think we worried too much about them in 2010, from 2006 onwards. I think we were right to take them seriously. I think we were right to, campaign to reconnect with our voters. We'd left a vacuum and the extreme right had filled it. I do think that they were so overwhelmingly defeated that they then imploded, fragmented, turned in on themselves. I think Mr. Bonds there is in his third extreme right party, which he's now leading or chairing or doing something with. So I think 2010 was a turning point. But I do also believe this, Jeremy, that fascism goes in waves, and we saw the wave of 2010. But we have to continue to be vigilant so that we don't allow the extreme right to exploit.
The key thing is what's going on in the minds of citizens in this country. The question here, Andrew Bronze, is have people changed their views?
Oh, I'd like to correct something, first of all. Margaret Hodge is talking about fascism. The actions of the Labour Party towards the BNP have been fascistic rather than the other way around.
Well,
Can we
I'd like to
just get to a point instead of you endlessly interrupting to what you claim is correct things? Let's just engage with this question. As far as you're aware, have the minds of former BNP supporters changed on substantive issues or not?
No, you're really talking about two different groups of people. Those who are members, and the party's certainly lost probably about 80, 85, 90% of its membership. In terms of its voters, all they've done is switch their allegiance to UKIP. Why? Because the media quite shamelessly promote UKIP. How many times has Nigel Farage been on Question Time? More than any other politician in this country.
Well, I think one thing that did for Nick Griffin was actually going on Question Time before
but it
2010.
wasn't Question Time he went on.
So,
it was Question Time.
It was Question Time.
No, it was a different version
just
of
before 2010. Can I just say two things? I think we engaged with the BNP democratically, exposed their real true beliefs, the fact they don't believe the Holocaust ever happened, their
who said
fascist
that?
beliefs.
Come on, let's have a little modesty here. Why don't you engage with his point, which is that people who previously might have supported a far-right party like the BNP are now being taken up with UKIP?
Well, I was going to say the second point is I think many of the reasons that people voted for the BNP or were attracted to the BNP pre-2010 were that the mainstream parties had not really connected with people around issues of their concern, whether it was issues around migration or whether it was issues around access to social housing, all these important issues. That's what the BNP exploited. They exploited them for other purposes, but they exploited them. What has now happened is, I think they imploded, they fragmented, they're fighting within themselves. And where the vacuum exists across the country, now UKIP is filling it. Now UKIP is not a racist party, it's a xenophobic party, it's a different kettle of fish. They've got a very charismatic leader. And I think if mainstream politicians don't get on with really listening to what their voters are saying, responding to it, then you allow odd parties on the extreme right or the less extreme right to fill that vacuum.
Yes, I'm afraid you've got the causal connection completely wrong. It isn't that the vote collapsed and then the party fragmented. It's that the party fragmented and that made way
With the
for
greatest respect,
a media-promoted
in my
UKIP
constituency,
and a media-promoted
in my
Farage.
constituency, you were hoping to get your first parliamentary seat. You failed.
I don't
you
think there
had
was any-
12
I don't think that was ever
BNP
on the cards.
councillors. You had 12 BNP councillors who were elected in 2006. They were all overwhelmingly, absolutely, totally smashed and defeated.
Why were they defeated? Because they
we
faced
exposed,
because they faced a general
the reality
election
of your
electorate.
politics.
In other words, 65-70%, whereas back in 2005 or whatever it was, they'd faced perhaps a 30%
Actually, what we did,
That's
we really
clear
engaged
reason.
with you. Perhaps we
had
should
somebody
talk
in
about
Leeds.
your politics
Yes,
rather than
we had
figures.
somebody. We had somebody
let
in
me
Leeds.
just ask you two questions
whose
in
vote
your new
went
party.
up in
Well,
2009.
you better be very quick because we're
Can I
already
finish?
trespassing
Right.
on whatever's coming
Right,
after us.
okay. In your new party, do you still believe that the Holocaust never occurred or has been exaggerated?
Let him answer that. Is that
Whatever's that got to do with politics
no?
today?
Well, I say it's a quite
I
significant
leave
political point.
poli-
Have you got anything to say on that
I
or
leave
not?
I leave history to the historians.
Okay, all right.
It's not the job of
all right.
political parties.
And
Okay,
do you
you-
still believe that
I've
people
never
who are
believed that.
British but who may be second, third generation immigrants of a different colour to you should be forced to leave the country? Do you still
I'm not
believe
allowing
that?
you to put words into my mouth. You know
Oh,
exactly
come
what
along,
our
answer
policies
the. Well,
are.
you're not going to answer the question. You spent too long correcting us so far. Thank you both very much. Thanks. Well, that's your lot. Gavin has the pleasure tomorrow. Until then, good night.